Well, it is a great privilege to be able to contribute to this condolence motion here today, brought by the member for the entrance. And of course, Grant's loss in February is a great loss to his family, a great loss to the community, and certainly a great loss to his friends in the Labor Party. And can I say that Grant, of course, is remembered as a true Labor man. Grant's love for Labor went very deep, and it was expressed every day in everything that he did. He stood up for things that mattered to most ordinary working people and their families. Things like jobs, TAFE, healthcare and education were very important to Grant and drove him in his public life. His values of fairness, justice and equality, those shared by us in this place, were certainly also something that drove Grant, and certainly in his capacity working for the community. Grant he was perfectly placed to represent his community's opposition to what Grant referred to as the arid marginalisation of the Greiner government. Grant's intelligence and his unending compassion for everyday people meant that it was no surprise when he was eventually elected to represent his community in the New South Wales Parliament. His election to this place came off the back of a strong community grassroots campaign, which defined his approach in actual fact for the rest of his political life. He was hardworking, he was a good listener, and a highly effective local member. In the lead up to the election, Grant door-knocked every house in the entrance. Grant brought people's concerns to this place, and that enabled him to be a wonderful local member. Unlike some of those who have spoken before me, I didn't work with Grant here in the New South Wales Parliament. However, as you all know, my husband, the former member for Swansea, did. And I feel as though I learned a lot about Grant through Robert's stories of Grant. And as the member for Wyong said, Grant was loved squash. And Robert was one of Grant's squash partners. They played most mornings. The problem is that Robert doesn't like losing, and Grant was actually a very good squash player. But he soldiered on and he continued to play with Grant every day. He said that he referred to Grant to me as a bit of an old fox and a cagey old bugger. But of course they were terms of endearment. He loved Grant very much, and he, like the other members in this place, certainly was mentored by Grant. He respected Grant enormously. He was certainly on the same side of privatisation as Grant, so that was obviously something as well. And he certainly missed Grant, and he asked me to pass on his condolences to Barbara and, of course, to the rest of the family. But in those 19 years that Grant was elected, the member, his love and his commitment to his community and the broader Central Coast communities never faltered. And in 2005, he was appointed, very proudly of course, the Minister for the Central Coast. As someone who represents an electorate which straddles both the Hunter and the Central Coast regions, I'm particularly aware of how important work that Grant did in building those communities on the coast during his time in Parliament. He is seen everywhere, as David said. Grant had a genuine understanding of the tangible impact of governments and the difference that it can make to people's lives. Things like improving public transport services to areas which had previously been completely isolated, and ensuring public transport was affordable. That was so important to Grant. He understood that, and particularly for those people who relied on it and the impacts that that can have on people's lives on the coast. Of course, everyone in the chamber would know the important role that our families play when we come to work in this place. And I would like to acknowledge you, Barbara, and of course all of Grant's children and grandchildren who are here today. Please know that you have my deepest sympathies for the loss of Grant, and I know that he will be sorely missed not just by you, but as I said from the very get-go, also by the broader Labor community and certainly colleagues in this place, but most importantly as well from the community that he represented so well for such a long period of time. Grant certainly set the benchmark for me and my Central Coast colleagues in terms of standing up for people who live on the coast, and he has set a strong example for us to follow, to be good local members, because that's what he was. As Grant often said during his time here, it is an honour and a privilege to be able to serve your community, and I can assure you that I feel equally privileged to be able to help build on Grant's legacy and deliver for those communities on the Central Coast. That legacy, of course, lives on in other ways as well, with Grant's passion and dedication for the community and the contribution he has made, recently memorialised by the Central Coast Council, naming public amenities in his honour. We're so honoured that they have recognised Grant's wonderful legacy. To the very end, Grant was a die-in-the-wool Labor man, a man of integrity who always stood for fairness, justice and equality, and as a Minister of the Crown worked as hard as he could to make New South Wales a great state. It is heartbreaking that his illness took him so soon after his retirement. But I do hope and I do thank his family so much and hope that you can find comfort in the knowledge that New South Wales and most importantly his beloved Central Coast are grateful for the 19 years of his service. Vale Grant McBride.
The question is that the motion be agreed to.
You can write mine.